The debris field floated like a broken constellation, a slow-moving graveyard of twisted beams and shattered hull plating. My ship's scanners ticked off fragments with the lazy indifference of a bored clerk at the end of a shift, but something among the drifting wreckage pulsed faintly, a beacon barely clinging to life. I frowned, half tempted to ignore it. After all, old outposts died all the time, and usually they took nothing worth saving with them. Still, a blinking light in the void was like an itch in the back of the skull. It demanded scratching. I swung my ship around, engines murmuring low, and eased closer. What came into focus was no intact pod but a jagged, ruptured capsule. It looked like someone had tried to fold a soda can with a neutron star. The fact it still glowed meant something inside hadn't gotten the memo about being dead yet. Against my better judgment, I latched on with the retrieval grapplers. I'd barely cycled the airlock when I saw her. At first glance she could have passed for human, but the illusion broke the moment I noticed her ears, long, arcing upward and back, ending in sharp, delicate points. They twitched faintly, like antennae listening to some frequency only she could hear. Her skin carried a metallic sheen, as though someone had painted her in moonlight, and her eyes cracked open just enough to fix on me with suspicion. Not gratitude, not fear. Suspicion, like I was late to deliver a bill she didn't want to pay. "Great," I muttered. "Another alien who thinks I look like a walking invoice." She tried to speak, but what came out was a weak rasp, more static than words. I knelt beside her, checked her vitals with a handheld scanner, and winced at the numbers. Dehydration, oxygen deprivation, internal bruising, the whole buffet of surviving in a cracked pod. If she were human, she'd be 3/4 in the grave. For her kind, maybe it was just a rough Tuesday. Still, leaving her there wasn't an option. I rigged the gravsling, hauled her onto my deck, and sealed the lock. As I carried her down the narrow corridor, she made a sound somewhere between a groan and a laugh. Or maybe she was mocking the way I almost banged her head on the doorframe. "Don't worry," I said, grunting as I set her down on the med couch. "I'm a professional. Banged heads are only 50 credits extra." The ship's med unit hissed to life, spraying antiseptic foam and running diagnostics. She blinked at the machinery, her long ears shifting as though irritated by the noise. I sat on the opposite bench, peeling open a nutrient pack. She stared at it. No, not at it, at me, like I was holding some forbidden relic. "What this?" I waggled the pack. "You don't eat goop in a pouch where you're from. Lucky you." Her throat worked as though she wanted to answer, but instead she coughed, then released a sound that resembled a word. The ship's translator kicked in with a cheerful chime. "Late." I blinked. "Excuse me." "You were late." I looked at her, at the bruises lining her jaw, the silver sheen of her skin under the med lights, and I couldn't help myself. "Well, forgive me for not checking my watch before stumbling across your half-crushed pod. Next time, I'll make a reservation." Her lips twitched, just slightly. Not quite a smile, but close enough to feel like I'd won a small victory. The hours stretched in that awkward way they do when you're stuck in close quarters with someone you don't understand. She dozed, waking only when the med unit beeped, or when I cracked another bad joke about her ears picking up galactic radio. Each time, her gaze would linger on me a little longer, like she was running silent calculations behind those strange eyes. When she finally spoke more than one word, it was sudden, like a hatch blowing open. "You human." "Last I checked," I said, tapping my chest. 100% organic, frequently tired, occasionally sarcastic." Her long ears twitched. "Sarcastic. It's a survival mechanism. You've got ears, I've got sarcasm, evens out." This time there was no mistaking it. She gave a short, melodic sound like glass struck by a fingertip. A laugh. Not loud, not long, but real. For reasons I couldn't explain, that laugh settled something tight in my chest. Maybe because the void outside didn't feel quite so vast with it echoing softly in my ship. Or maybe because I realized she wasn't just studying me, she was deciding whether I was worth trusting. I leaned back, kicking my boots up on the bulkhead. Well, since you're here, I should let you know the rules. 1. Don't touch the nav controls, they're temperamental. 2. Don't open the fridge unless you want to lose your sense of smell forever. 3. No trying to stab me in my sleep. Sound fair? Her eyes half closed, and in a voice rough but steady, she murmured, "Fair." Then, with more force, she added, "You mine." I froze mid-sip of recycled coffee. "I'm sorry, what now?" "You mine." The translator beeped, confirming the phrase. I looked at her, at those impossible ears, at the strange dignity she carried even slumped against the med couch. "Look," I said slowly, "I think we're having a little cultural misfire here. You're injured, I pulled you out of a can. That doesn't make me anyone's property." Her ears flicked backward, not unlike a cat annoyed by being denied a sunbeam. "Mine," she repeated, and this time there was no mistaking the weight in her tone. I ran a hand down my face. "Perfect. I rescue a mysterious alien woman, and 5 minutes later I'm somebody's pet. Just my luck." She tilted her head, considering me like I was the one speaking nonsense. Then, to my utter disbelief, she reached out, placed a hand against my chest, and let out that crystalline laugh again. The med unit beeped in protest at the sudden movement, but she ignored it. Her hand was warm, steady. I sat there like an idiot, caught between alarm and something else I refused to name. "Well," I muttered, "this ought to make for some interesting explanations at the next port. I can see it now. Customs, I'd like you to meet the long-eared woman who claims ownership of me. Please don't fine us." Her ears twitched again, and though I couldn't tell if she understood the joke, she kept her hand pressed lightly to my chest as though staking her claim. The silence stretched. Outside, the wreckage of the old outpost drifted on, a silent reminder of how fragile everything was out here. Inside, in the cramped hum of my ship, an alien woman who should have been dead was laughing at my sarcasm and declaring me hers. And for the first time in a long while, the void didn't feel quite so empty. Docking at the station should have been routine. My ship had limped into that battered orbital with its hull groaning and my nerves stretched thinner than recycled paper. And all I wanted was fuel, filters, and maybe a halfway decent sandwich that hadn't been squeezed out of a pouch. Instead, the moment we stepped into the docking bay, my passenger decided to rewrite my social life forever. The place was crowded. Haulers unloading cargo, engineers yelling at loaders, traders hawking parts from crates that looked more stolen than bought. A dozen languages clashed overhead, and my translator buzzed in my ear like an overworked bee. I barely got 3 steps toward the clerk's terminal when the long-eared woman behind me pushed past. She stood straighter than I'd seen since I'd pulled her out of the wreck, her bruises faded under a faint shimmer of med foam, and in a voice that carried clear over the chaos, she declared, "This human is mine." The entire bay went silent. You could have heard a rivet drop into a coolant tank. Then the laughter started. A crew of smugglers snorted into their sleeves. A grizzled mechanic cackled so hard he nearly dropped his wrench on his foot. Even the station clerk, who I'd always thought had been surgically stripped of humor, leaned back and grinned. I pinched the bridge of my nose. Why do I feel like I've just been signed up for something without reading the fine print? She looked at me, ears tilting back with regal certainty. "Mine," she repeated, slower this time as if I were dense. I tried for diplomacy. "Okay, let's put a pause on the whole ownership declaration thing. People here don't really." "She's serious," muttered a trader leaning on his crate. "That's a claim, old star law, you're bonded." I turned to him. "Bonded? I don't even know her last name." The trader shrugged. "Doesn't matter, she invoked it. That's binding in half the sectors out here." I laughed nervously. "Great, just what I wanted. I come for coolant filters, I leave with a spouse." More laughter rippled through the bay. The alien woman, however, did not laugh. She looked at me like I'd just spilled soup on a royal carpet. "You object?" "Yes, no, maybe. Look, you can't just walk into a station and declare me yours like I'm some kind of prize drone." Her ears flicked in irritation. "You saved me, I name you, that is law." The clerk finally found his voice. "Congratulations, Captain. Paperwork's already transmitting. You're responsible for her well-being. Any failure to protect her reflects on you. I slapped the terminal. Excuse me, I just came for supplies. Now I've got guardianship papers. The clerk only smiled wider. And joint docking privileges. It's all very efficient. I groaned, efficient. This is identity theft, but with extra vowels. Behind me she stood proudly, long ears high, as though she just won a tournament. From then on, the station visit spiraled downhill. At the food court, vendors offered me free samples for the bonded pair. At the repair dock, the mechanics insisted on giving me a couple's discount. Even a gang of dockhands who normally charged extra for moving cargo winked at me and said, "On the house, for the honeymoon." I tried protesting at every turn. "We're not a couple. This is a misunderstanding. She doesn't mean it that way." But every time she would fix me with that sharp, unreadable gaze, ears twitching faintly, and repeat, "Mine." I whispered at her while we ate something approximating noodles at a greasy stand. "Do you enjoy embarrassing me, or is this just an interstellar prank ritual I haven't heard of?" She slurped the noodles with dignified grace. "Not prank, tradition." "Well, your tradition just got me listed as property on 3 different databases." She blinked slowly. "You safe with me?" "Safe?" I sputtered. "Half the station thinks I'm your emotional support human." Her lips curved faintly, the closest I'd seen to a smile. "Yes." I dropped my head into my hands. "Fantastic. My life has officially become a cosmic sitcom." But comedy only carried us so far. By the 3rd day on the station, the rumor had spread. Crews stopped me in the corridors, slapping my back, asking how I'd won her. Some looked impressed, others skeptical, and a few downright envious. Meanwhile, captains with more knowledge of alien law gave me grim warnings. "That claim ties you together. If anyone challenges her bond, you'll both be pulled into it. Disputes aren't friendly." That part sobered me up. Challenges. I asked one old freighter captain over a cracked mug of synth beer. He leaned in, lowering his voice. "If someone thinks the bond's false, they can fight it. Trials, duels, arbitration in some very unfriendly courts. If she's valuable, you'd better watch your back." I glanced at her across the room, perched elegantly at the table, ears flicking to catch conversations in languages I couldn't even name. She didn't look like she thought of herself as valuable. But then again, people didn't usually send pirates after worthless cargo pods either. That night back aboard my ship, I confronted her. "You've turned me into your, what? Pet human, bond partner, target practice." She tilted her head, ears angling. "You object still?" "Yes, I object still. People are laughing. I'm on some cosmic registry. And now I've got captains telling me we're going to be challenged in duels like it's a medieval jousting tournament." She considered this carefully, then gave a small nod. "You worry much, you joke much, both keep you alive." I sighed. "You're impossible." Her crystalline laugh echoed in the cramped cabin. "Yes." I flopped into the pilot's chair, rubbing my temples. One of these days, I'm going to wake up and realize this was all a bizarre fever dream. Any second now, someone will knock on the hull and sell me a cure. Instead, the ship pinged an incoming message. Docking control. An official notice, our names, hers and mine, now linked in the station's system. Joint responsibilities, joint privileges, joint liabilities. I stared at the glowing text. "You've got to be kidding me." She leaned over my shoulder, her long ears brushing lightly against my cheek, and whispered, "No joke." I groaned. I missed the days when my biggest problem was running out of coffee packs. Her ears twitched. "We have coffee, you are not out." "Yeah, but now I'm out of sanity." Her laugh rang again, and somehow, against my will, I laughed too. The galaxy might have thought I belonged to her. But sitting there with her head tilted curiously at my coffee mug, ears catching every hum of the ship, I realized something far stranger. A part of me was beginning to think maybe they weren't wrong. It began with the warning klaxon, the kind that always sounds just a little too cheerful for the news it's delivering. I was in the middle of trying to convince the station's vending unit to accept my docking voucher as legal tender for something resembling bread when the alarm blared. My first thought, naturally, was that the machine had finally decided to escalate the argument. My second thought, once I saw the display flashing unauthorized VESSELS approaching, was far less funny. Pirates. Of course it was pirates. I bolted back toward the docking bay, muttering curses about my luck. My long-eared passenger, no partner claimant, whatever we were calling it these days, was already standing in the corridor, calm as if she'd ordered this attack in advance. Her ears flicked at the siren, her silver-toned skin catching the harsh lights. She didn't ask what was happening. She already knew. "They come for me," she said, as matter-of-fact as if she were announcing the weather. I skidded to a halt. "What, seriously? Couldn't they at least have sent me a memo first? Dear human, prepare for boarding and probable dismemberment. Sincerely, your friendly neighborhood raiders." Her gaze didn't waver. "They want the bond undone. If they take me, they break you." Great, so I'm not just a salvage pilot anymore. I'm a 2-for-1 special. The station's intercom sputtered orders for everyone to seal hatches and prepare defenses. Around us, crews scrambled, traders grabbed whatever weapons they had, and dockhands locked down the bay. I shoved her toward my ship. "Come on. We're not sticking around to see if they offer door prizes." We powered up fast, engines whining like a herd of angry bees. The docking clamps released, and I swung us out into open black. The pirate ships were already there, sleek, ugly cutters bristling with cannons. My stomach dropped. "You've got to be kidding me. Why can't I ever just run into a nice group of pirates who want to share cookies?" Her ears twitched, though her expression stayed unreadable. "Because cookies are rare." I snorted. "That's your contribution. I'm about to be atomized, and you're giving me snack analysis." "True," she tilted her head, "but funny." Lasers flashed across the void, one shot grazing our shields and sending sparks leaping through the cockpit. I swore and dove the ship, weaving between broken station debris. The inertial dampers groaned, protesting every move. She braced herself against the console, calm as a saint. "Any ideas?" I shouted, fingers flying over the controls. "Yes." She pressed her hand against the secondary systems panel. The screens flickered, then suddenly lit up with codes I hadn't installed. My jaw dropped as the ship's efficiency spiked, engines roaring with power I didn't even know they had. "What the hell are you doing?" "Bonded," she said simply. "Your systems listen to me now." I nearly swallowed my tongue. "They what?" Another barrage of fire ripped past. I yanked the ship hard, but the thrusters answered faster than they ever had before, smooth as if someone had cleared out years of grime in a single breath. With her touch guiding, the ship danced. We spun through debris like it was choreographed, dodging blasts by a hair. I started laughing, partly out of terror and partly out of disbelief. "Well, this is new. I've officially upgraded from salvage rat to getaway driver in a 2-person circus act." She didn't laugh, but her ears angled toward me, and I could see her lips twitch. That tiny sign of amusement made my heart slam harder than the G-forces. The pirates chased us into the shadow of the outpost wreckage, their ships splitting to box us in. My stomach knotted. "We can't outgun them." "No," she agreed calmly, "but we can outthink. Care to share with the class before I panic myself into a coma?" She tapped the console. "The debris carries charge. We pull them close, we ignite." I blinked, then grinned. "You want to set off a space fireworks show. Finally, something I can get behind." Together, we maneuvered through the twisted hulks of old modules, trailing energy behind us, her alien codes linking with my ship like they'd always belonged there. The pirates followed, hungry for the prize. At the last moment she raised her hand, and the ship obeyed without hesitation. The wreckage around us flared, arcs of stored energy snapping like lightning. The pirates' systems overloaded in an instant. One cutter went dead, drifting helpless. Another spiraled out, hull scorched. The third broke pursuit entirely, engines sputtering retreat. I leaned back in my seat, chest heaving. We actually pulled that off. We fried pirates with space junk. Do you realize how insane that is? Her crystalline laugh spilled into the cabin, soft and melodic. Yes. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The stars stretched quiet and endless outside, the chaos fading behind. My ship hummed steady, healthier than it had in years, as if it too had accepted this strange bond. I finally turned to her. You know, when I hauled you out of that pod, I thought I was just doing a decent thing. Didn't realize I was signing up for all this. She tilted her head, ears relaxing for the first time since I'd known her. Do you regret? I opened my mouth, ready with some sarcastic quip, but nothing came. Instead, I surprised myself. No, I don't. Her eyes softened. She leaned closer, her hand brushing against my chest the way it had back on that first day. Then you accept. I chuckled. Guess I do, just, maybe don't introduce me as property next time. Makes me sound like a particularly stubborn piece of luggage. She laughed again, and this time I laughed with her, the sound echoing warm in the cabin. We drifted out beyond the station, course set for open lanes. The official registries would still list us as bonded, and rumors would no doubt spread faster than light, but somehow it didn't feel like a burden anymore. Somewhere between sarcasm and survival, between her traditions and my stubborn disbelief, we'd found something neither of us had expected. For the first time in years, I didn't feel alone in the void. I tapped the console, plotting a course. So, where to now, partner? Her ears lifted high, catching the hum of the ship, and her answer was simple. Everywhere. And with that, we jumped into the stars. Two unlikely souls bound not by law or claim, but by the kind of trust that turns survival into something more.